Imagine celebrating a World Cup qualification that never actually happened. Imagine millions of fans erupting in joy after a goal, only to discover minutes later that their country had been eliminated. And imagine spending 4 years chasing a dream that disappears because of a single goal scored in another stadium. The strange part is that many new soccer fans assume World Cup qualification is simple. Win enough games and you advance. Lose too many and you're out. But the reality is far more complicated, because sometimes teams finish level on points. And that's where one of the most dramatic rules in sports suddenly takes control of an entire tournament. It's called goal difference. And few things have shattered more World Cup dreams. To understand why, we need to start with a question that sounds almost impossible. How can a team avoid defeat and still get eliminated? How can a nation celebrate and then go home? The answer lies in a rule most people barely notice until it's too late. Goal difference is simple. Goals scored minus goals conceded. Score 6, allow 3, your goal difference is +3. Score 4, allow 5, your goal difference is -1. Simple math, massive consequences. Because when teams finish level on points, goal difference often becomes the deciding factor. And that's when every goal suddenly matters. Not just whether you win, but by how much. Not just whether you lose, but when you concede. For modern American fans, this may seem strange. In many sports, a win is a win. The margin often becomes irrelevant once the game ends. The World Cup doesn't always work that way. Sometimes a goal in the final minutes of a match changes an entire group. And that's where the story becomes fascinating, because goal difference wasn't always the system FIFA used. Years ago, tournaments relied on something called goal average. Instead of subtracting goals conceded, FIFA divided goals scored by goals allowed. The system created strange incentives. Teams sometimes benefited from protecting numbers rather than attacking. Eventually, FIFA abandoned it. Goal difference was easier to understand, more aggressive, more rewarding for attacking teams. And from that moment forward, every goal became part of a larger story. Not just the story of one match, the story of an entire tournament. But that's only part of the story. Because the true drama appears when multiple teams finish level. And few examples are more shocking than what happened at the 2018 World Cup. Japan and Senegal finished with the same number of points. The same goal difference, the same number of goals scored. For modern fans, that may sound impossible, but it happened. Everything was level. So FIFA moved to the next tiebreaker. Fair play points, yellow cards. Japan had received fewer yellow cards than Senegal. And because of that, Japan advanced. Senegal was eliminated. Think about that for a moment. Not because of a defeat, not because of a goal, because of discipline. An entire World Cup campaign ended because of yellow cards accumulated across 3 matches. What happened next surprised people all over the world. Fans suddenly realized that every detail mattered, every tackle, every booking, every decision. Because once teams become separated by such small margins, everything counts. And that's when goal difference starts looking less like a statistic and more like a force of destiny. But the most important detail is often overlooked. Goal difference doesn't only determine who advances, it changes how teams behave. Imagine leading 2-0 late in a match. Most fans assume the job is finished. Sometimes it isn't. Managers may continue attacking. Players keep pushing forward, not because they need another goal today, but because they may need another goal 3 days later. One extra goal can become the difference between qualification and elimination, and World Cup history is filled with examples. To understand how chaotic this can become, we need to travel back to 1994. The World Cup in the United States, one of the strangest groups in tournament history. Italy, Mexico, Ireland, Norway. All 4 teams finished with exactly 4 points. Every single team. Imagine opening the standings and seeing 4 nations tied. The margins became microscopic. Goal difference suddenly became everything. A few moments here, a few moments there, and the entire group was decided. For modern fans, this may seem unbelievable, but that's exactly what makes the World Cup different. The tournament compresses years of preparation into just a few matches. Small moments become enormous. Tiny margins become history. And that's why goal difference keeps returning as one of soccer's most dramatic villains. But that's only part of the story, because sometimes the damage isn't visible immediately. Sometimes a goal scored in one stadium destroys dreams in another. The final match day of a World Cup group can feel like controlled chaos. Multiple games, multiple scoreboards, millions of people doing calculations in real time. One goal changes everything, then another goal changes it again. Fans celebrate, then panic, then celebrate again, all within minutes. And perhaps that's the hidden drama that new fans often miss. The World Cup isn't just about what's happening in front of you. It's also about what's happening everywhere else. A team can be advancing 1 minute and eliminated the next, without touching the ball. And that's when everything changes. Because goal difference becomes more than mathematics. It becomes psychology. Managers start watching other matches. Players ask for score updates. Entire benches react to goals scored hundreds of miles away. The pressure becomes enormous. What most people believe is that World Cup dreams are destroyed by losses. But the reality is much harsher. Sometimes World Cup dreams are destroyed by details. A goal conceded in the 88th minute, a missed chance in the opening game, a shot that hits the post instead of going in. Those moments accumulate, and eventually they become the difference between glory and heartbreak. The modern game has made this even more dramatic. Today's World Cups are more competitive than ever. Smaller nations are stronger. Tactical preparation is better. The gap between teams keeps shrinking. That means group tables become tighter, margins become smaller, and goal difference becomes even more important. A few decades ago, powerhouse nations often won by large margins. Today, those margins are harder to create. Every goal becomes more valuable, and every goal conceded becomes more dangerous. That's why World Cup 2026 has already reminded fans how important these calculations can be. The closer the competition becomes, the more powerful goal difference becomes. Not because the rule changed, because the sport changed, and perhaps that's the ultimate lesson. Goal difference exists because the World Cup needs a way to separate teams that appear equal. But in doing so, it creates some of the most dramatic moments in sports. Moments where celebration turns into heartbreak. Moments where history changes in seconds. Moments where one goal alters the destiny of an entire nation. What most people believe is that goal difference is just a tiebreaker. But the reality is that it's one of the hidden engines driving the entire tournament. It influences tactics, shapes decisions, creates pressure, and occasionally destroys dreams. So how can a single goal destroy a World Cup dream? Because in the World Cup, every goal becomes part of a much larger story. A story that may not reveal its ending until the very last minute. And sometimes that ending changes everything. Had you heard any of these stories before? And do you think goal difference is the fairest way to separate teams at the World Cup? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching The World Game, and I'll see you in the next story.